Hey guys, Jonathan with JWaltPhotography.com, and today I'm going to be sharing 5 tips into breaking into music photography. Okay, so tip number 1 sounds kind of harsh coming right out of it, but I promise you it's necessary. Don't be a douche. Whenever I say this, people think I'm trying to be negative, and it's not. Is that you have to respect everyone whenever you're in music photography. When you think you're only working for the band, you're gonna have a bad time. You need to get along with security, you need to get along with all wait staff, you need to get along with all management, all labels, everybody, and you don't need to be arrogant about what you're doing. Always remember that the most important people at any concert are the people who paid for tickets. Not you with the photo pass, not anybody else. It's the people who paid for that, and you need to make sure that you're respectful to them and everybody else that puts on the production. The next tip number 2, is to start small. Now this may sound obvious, but you get a lot of people in music photography who think they're gonna jump in and just start shooting the biggest and the best artists in the world. That's not gonna happen typically. You need to start at your local clubs, at shooting your friends or anybody else, even open mic nights. You need to get used to being in different positions and try to start small and work your way into bigger venues, bigger settings with bigger bands. The cool thing about this though is that smaller bands actually give you more exposure. Since when you're starting out, you're probably not going to get paid for it. The exposure does help you build a name for yourself. Whenever I was going through this, I shot for a lot of bands that had huge followings that shared my photos. I would see maybe a few likes on Facebook from it, but it wasn't until I dug deep into my St. Louis scene here and started helping out all the local bands I could that I started noticing I got a lot of traction, and they started realizing my character and integrity were in it and the passion showed up. So be sure to follow and just dive deep into your local scene and then spread out from there. Tip number 3 sounds easy, but it's the hardest tip of them all probably. Be different. You've got to stand out in music photography. You got limited space and you share it with everybody else who's got a camera. So you have to be looking for ways to make your images different and shine whenever you're trying to move up. You need to look for ways to catch the eye that doesn't look like a dozen other photos that the band received that same night. You can do this a lot of different ways. How I like to do it is if I see a dozen photographers going over to one side or the other of the pit, I go the opposite way. I never try to do angles that I've seen a lot of with the same bands. I do my research. I see what kind of images are out there, so I know what kind of moves and stuff like that they do, and then I put that all together and try to think of the best angle. If you're going to take this serious, be prepared and be different. Step 4 is one that I hate, but it is very necessary. You need the gear to shoot music photography. While you can shoot music photos with a kit lens and a crop sensor camera, you're not going to get the best results. And I hate saying that because I don't like to focus a lot of my energy on trying to get stuff or help people get stuff that is so far out of their price range. But understanding what gear you need is the part that I want to emphasize on this. You need to know your boundaries of the gear you currently have. So if you currently have a kit lens that has a maximum aperture of 3.5, you're going to be losing out images because it's going to be too dark for those images that just needed a 2.8 or even faster at a 1.8. There are a lot of ways that you can do this and keep it cheap and budget friendly. You can check out the 50mm 1.8. That is a great lens. They have it in both versions of all different types of cameras, so that way you can get it, and most of the time you can get the nice new one for under $300. And you can get even some of the older versions for under $200. So you need to focus on having the correct gear to do music photography. Something that's going to let you stop motion, something that's going to let you, use your ISO without blowing out the image with noise. The final tip I have for you, and one that I feel is probably the most important, is going to be editing. The reason I say editing is most important is because I see a lot of concert photographers do something and it irritates me very, very badly. A lot of concert photographers come from a portrait world. They start shooting families and kids and babies and all this cool stuff and couples, and they want to make sure the skin tones are perfect. That is awesome for portrait photography. Music photography, whenever you start changing your white balance and start mixing your temperatures and tints so that you can get correct skin tones, you're losing the ambiance and the emotion that is in that photo. Concert photos have lights. They all are going to have crazy lights in it. Don't be scared of having light that makes your subject in your picture neon blue or something else. Now, I'm not saying go crazy and understand when to throw a picture away, but I'm saying make sure that when you're editing, you don't get so heavy-handed or so prim and proper trying to fix it that you end up losing what the emotion was in the image to begin with. Also, on the terms of editing, be light-handed on the sliders. Whether you're in Lightroom or Photoshop, don't go crazy with them. Move them so you know exactly what you're working with is in terms of what fields you're working with. If you're working with highlights, slide it to the max and slide it to the minimum. See what you're messing with. Do the same thing with all of them. Not every photo, even from the same shoot, needs to be dressed or edited the same. There are images where I have slid the clarity up to 100, where the very next picture, it just doesn't work. So as far as the 5 tips, I hope you found these helpful. Again, don't be a douche. Start small. Be different. Make sure you have the gear that's going to get you the shots you want, and focus on editing with the emotion in mind. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more content. You can also subscribe on JWaltPhotography.com, where I send out exclusive content to all of my blog subscribers. You can check that out there. That content includes free presets, actions, all that cool jazz. Have a good one.